Hey all, here at OS Reviews. You're watching our hands-on review of the Puersit Hi-Fi audio player. So the concept of MP3 and MP4 players have become less and less popular as smartphones have become increasingly mainstream. But there are still a few reasons why you might want to consider a dedicated player like this. For one, it has improved battery life compared to a smartphone, obviously, so you can play audio for 30 to 50 hours on a single go, and it can also benefit folks who want to travel light, or if you're running, jogging outside, and you don't want to carry around something as hefty as a smartphone just to listen to music or audiobooks, this could still be something to consider. Now this version here comes with 16 gigs of built-in storage and comes in a few different colors as well. It retails for about $30 to $40 depending on the capacity, so it's not too expensive, and it also does feature Bluetooth built on in, which is slightly better than the average MP3 player that you'll find at the same cost. So we have the player right in the center here, and underneath we have access to even a screen protector for the MP3 player, a nice little accessory there, and down below here we have some free earbuds, which resemble the Apple AirPods as far as design is concerned, and you have a 3.5mm plug. There's also an interesting auxiliary cable, so you can plug this into a speaker if you wanted to blast out music to share. A nice little accessory we don't just tend to see on these devices these days, and it also charges using micro USB. Finally, there is the instruction manual, which is down below here, that tells you very quickly how to access some of its various features. There's also an FM radio on here. There is a microphone, so you can use it to record voice memos as well. So there are a few bonuses that you'll find. And there's also a basic text reader if you want to take a look at basic memos, things like that. Alright, so taking a look at the design of the player next, it is made entirely out of plastics. It doesn't feel incredibly premium, but at the same time it doesn't feel slick just because the soft touch rubber provides a nice grip. You can see that the model number is the T06 Pro, and on the side here we have access to a dedicated switch for power. There's also a volume rocker, which is actually a very nice feature. A lot of times we don't tend to see these controls, and if you want to change the volume, you have to dig into the settings, which becomes a little bit tedious if you want to change it very quickly, so it's a nice little feature here. On the other side, we have access to a lanyard strap. There's also a micro SD card slot if you want to expand on the built-in memory. Micro USB for charging, takes about 2 hours to completely charge. And on the bottom, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack. So as far as the Bluetooth is concerned, we can use it to connect to a Bluetooth headset if you want to listen to audio wirelessly, which is a pretty neat feature. You can see that the screen here is actually a TFT LCD panel. It's not IPS though, so obviously viewing angles as well as the brightness will be a little bit challenging if you are using it outdoors, but it suffices for a budget device like this. The interface here is quite simple. We just have a grid layout. There's access to the time as well as the battery status on the top, and I can use these controls for a navigation toggle, OK key, play, pause, back, and menu keys to navigate this entire interface. So for the most part, it's actually fairly intuitive just because the controls actually do correspond to what you want to do in terms of going up, down, left, and right, unlike many other MP4 players that we've seen in the past, which were rip-offs or clones of iPod Nanos, and those had very unintuitive controls that didn't really map to the functions that you think they would do. But that's not the case here. It actually works quite well on first impressions. So if I want to play music and tap on the center key here, very basic interface. Now it does play high-res audio tracks as well as lossless audio formats in addition to the typical MP3 WMA. So if you want to load up some slightly higher quality tracks, it should also be perfectly acceptable on this player. With that being said, it doesn't have anything fancy like a built-in DAC, so it's also not going to deliver, let's say, the best audio quality in the world. Again, to be expected since it really is a budget-oriented model. The UI is simple, but it's not the most attractive thing that I've seen, especially since you can see a lot of scrolling text, just because the entire song doesn't fit within the size of the display. But if I want to play this particular track, you can see it starts playing it immediately, and it also shows off the additional information such as the artist's name as well as lyrics if you have it available for the song. It does also support cover art since it is a color screen, but you have to drag that in yourself. You can use a Mac or a PC, and it's a plug-and-play solution. The FM radio actually works surprisingly well. There's actually a built-in antenna, so you don't have to plug in the headphones to act as the receiver to first use it. You can see it's searching for channels automatically, and it's going to find a handful here in the Seattle region without too many issues. So you can listen to news as well as to some music without too many problems, and it will save those as your presets depending on your region, and you can just tap on it to start playing it back. You can also start recording radio if you want to save it onto the device's built-in memory. Here's the file manager. We also have access to a pedometer, another kind of unique feature I didn't expect to see on a device like this, but it tracks things like motions. So there is an accelerometer on here. When you take a step, it will try and move that up. It will also calculate the distance that you've walked in addition to calories burned. Obviously, this won't replace a dedicated fitness tracker anytime soon. It's nowhere near as sensitive. It sometimes overcounts your steps if you just shake it, but it is a nice little extra that's built in here, and I suppose it makes sense because, again, MP3 players would probably cater to those who go to the gym or jog outside these days, so it's a nice little feature that they built in that's fitness oriented for those demographics. Finally, there's access to the voice recorder, so you can tap on this to begin recording the track. The microphone is a little bit small. It's actually located on the edge of the player, but it picks up voices okay if you are recording things like meetings or lecture notes. It is a nice application that you can use it for. Under Tools, you also find access to some basic utility programs, another bonus that I wasn't really expecting. It's nothing fancy, but there's access to a basic calendar that you can view. Unfortunately, you can't really access notifications or sync this using Bluetooth to a phone, but it is there if you want to quickly take a look at the time and date information. There's also an alarm that you can set. There is no built-in speaker, however, so if you want to use this, you probably have to plug in headphones or plug it into a speaker to use it as an actual alarm clock, but it is functional. There's also a stopwatch, again, a nice little fitness-oriented app that they built in, and you also find access to photos and movies under this particular tab. I kind of think that these two programs, photos and movies, should have been put onto the main menu instead, just because they seem like more core features than just basic utility features, but nonetheless they are under Tools. Finally, if I tap on Movie, and it's going to play back an AMV track here just as a demonstration, and it works, but you can see that the display is a little bit small. It measures roughly 1.5 inches diagonally. Again, it's not very pixel dense, it's not very bright, so definitely not the most enjoyable experience, but if you have to, you can definitely watch a few clips when on the go. In terms of controls, I can also tap on it once to bring up this menu, and I can also long hold to do things like scrubbing back and forth between the track, and you can see it's actually quite responsive, so the processor here seems to be keeping up with these basic tasks without too many issues. 4x zoom seems to be working without too many problems. Playing and pausing, no issues there either. Obviously, we would probably recommend using a smartphone or a tablet these days to watch a lot of movies for streaming, but if you have to, again, it is a feature that they did build on in to this device. Same thing goes with ebook. It's not something that you'll probably be using a lot, but it plays back text files without any problems in this black and white inverted view. I wouldn't really say it's an ebook reader just because the screen is so small that you have to do a lot of scrolling to access content, but if you have to place in emergency contact information or quick memos, you can just drag in text files and it can be read on here without too many problems. So nice little extra. Finally, there's just access to Bluetooth, which you can turn on again just to connect to a Bluetooth headset, which in our quick hands-on testing so far seem to work without too many problems. Connection range is around 10 meters or 33 feet, and then you can enjoy your tracks wirelessly if you are running or jogging without having to plug in headphones onto the bottom of the device. So that's more or less it as far as our hands-on review of the Puersit MP3 audio player is concerned. The interface is actually quite easy to use. It's a step up compared to other generic MP3 players I've seen also sold on Amazon for around the same price. All the controls, including the dedicated volume rockers, are well appreciated. The build quality seems to be good as far as giving you a nice surface that you can grip onto. The memory is expandable, and there are additional features that you probably wouldn't expect on such a low-cost model, including access to wireless Bluetooth, a pedometer, and various utility programs. It's actually pretty well thought out and functions well. So you can check out more details about this in the links down below, but for now this has been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. This has been the Puersit T06 Pro Bluetooth digital media player.